Hello, my name is Hearns Laguerre Jr. Now, if you ever rode on the Central South Campus bus on the Syracuse University campus, you may have met a bus driver who entertains you through song and poetry during your bus ride. His name is Mickey Mahoon, but he goes by another name. This edition of Syracuse Stories, we learn about the man, the myth, the legend, Mickey, the Flying Busman. Mickey is no ordinary bus driver. He sings the stops on the bus route and also recites from memory his poetry.
A happy Friday, poetry lovers. It's a lovely afternoon for poetry, yes?
His name, the Flying Busman, is an appropriate title.
The Ballad of the Flying Busman. You've heard the story of the Flying Dutchman, that stubborn sea captain who wouldn't give in. He sailed into a storm around the Cape of Good Hope, shook his fist at the devil, he was going for broke. My fly is down, I'm flying low to the ground. I'm the Flying Busman, I'm flying all around town.
But where does his tale begin? We sat down with Mickey at his home, and he shared with us his story.
I'm from a small town in central New York called Geneva. It's a typical small town of probably 20,000 people, and I lived a probably quintessential small town American boy's life. After high school, I got out by the skin of my teeth. In fact, I tell people that the teachers must have deliberately raised my grades just to get rid of me. I don't think they wanted to deal with me after my senior year. So I got out somehow and didn't really know what was the next step. But as it turned out, fortunately, the community college in Rochester accepted me because I did have a high school diploma. So I went to Monroe Community College for 2 years and finished there in 1974. And at that point, I started my 10-year odyssey back and forth across the country, traveling almost continuously between the East and the West Coast. You know, I'd settle at someplace long enough to make a little money and hang out and have some fun. And then I'd move on. So I did that for, as I say, 10 years. And then I hit a wall and was pretty uncertain about where I was headed or what I wanted to do. And I had some personal problems that landed me in the mental health mental health clinic. And I admitted myself, I knew that I had some issues that had to be resolved. So I spent 6 weeks there and came out and felt better about myself and about my life.
Although his life was now in check, Mickey took a few turns down different career paths.
And my intention at the time was to enter the seminary. I decided that that wasn't what I wanted to do after all. So I worked for a year as a roofer and decided that certainly wasn't what I wanted to do. I always loved literature, and I thought, well, maybe I would enjoy being an English teacher. Perhaps that wasn't exactly right either. So I took a leave of absence, and that lasted for 3 years. Stuck around and taught for a couple of years at the university. Discovered that that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I took a job as a part-time clerk. My buddy owned a bookstore in downtown Syracuse, so I worked for him part-time. And one morning, I was sitting in a cafe, having my breakfast, drinking coffee, looking over the local paper, and I saw that there was an ad for bus drivers, and it paid well, and they were hiring people part-time, and they provided the training, and so I thought, why not? You know, I've got nothing better to do now, and I might just as well give it a shot. And that was over 20 years ago, and I'm still trucking.
To be a great flying busman, you must have a great co-pilot.
My wife is a constant inspiration, and she has challenged me in ways that I certainly could never have been challenged, or probably would not have wanted to be challenged.
How did you meet Mickey?
Well, it's probably the most original story of meet cute you're ever going to hear. So it was at Channel 9, which Mickey still toots the horn at every time we drive by. And I knew everyone else there except for this guy, and met him, and he just wouldn't leave me alone. And when it came time for us to go into the studio, there was a long table and 5 phones. So I sat at one end, and he got himself next to me. And then the phone started ringing, and mine was the first one that rang. And then the others, it would roll down to the others. And they kept ringing, and I kept picking it up and saying, "Hi, Children's Miracle Network, would you like to make a pledge?" And at one point, I did that. It rang, and I said, "Hi, Children's Miracle Network, would you like to make a pledge?" And the guy on the other end said, "Hi, is your left hand on your ear?" And I said, "Yes, it is. Would you like to make a pledge?" And he said, "Well, let me tell you where my right hand is." And I went, "It's for you."
So she hands the receiver to me.
That was the only thing I could think to do right then.
Right, and so remember now, this is on television, right?
Yes.
So he's seeing who he's talking to. So she hands the receiver to me, and I don't know what has transpired. I just know that I've got a receiver in my hand, and somebody's on the other end of the line, presumably. So I say, "Hello," and I don't hear anything. "Hello," I don't hear anything. So he didn't care where my hand was. He wasn't interested in me at all. And that was it. It was a done deal. I hung up the phone, and he never called back and made a pledge.
So I wouldn't tell Mickey what the guy said until he took me out.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know. I said, "Well, so what was that all about?" She said, nothing.
I can't tell you right now.
So we like to tell everyone we met over an obscene phone call at a telethon.
When you're bus driving, a lot of people not only know you for being a bus driver, but being a bus driver that sings and tells poetry. Now, how long did you do this? How long did you write poetry? How long were you singing?
Well, I've been writing poetry for a long time. 4 years ago, I took a run up on the hill at Syracuse University, driving the South Campus shuttle bus. And without any real deliberate planning or strategizing on my part, I thought that I wanted to do something a little different. And we are required, as of, 10 years ago or something, the federal government has passed the ADA regulation, which means that we are required to announce certain bus stops along the bus route. They're bus stops that are on the manifest that we use. So I started announcing them initially, and I thought, well, I can do better than this.
Chin up, dry.
I needed to make it more fun. I'd been doing this for a long time, and I needed to put a little bit of an edge on it and make it a little bit more challenging. And I wanted it to be a venue for me to do what I love and to express myself in a way other than just turning the wheel around and around all day.
Happy Friday, poetry lovers. It's a beautiful afternoon for poetry, yes?
I didn't do anything with the poetry my first year on the Hill. But the second year, it came out of the blue. I was singing my stops again, and the Flying Busman manuscript was pretty close to finished. And so I thought, I've got a captive audience here. They're on the bus. They're not going to go anywhere unless I let them out. I've got a microphone. Why don't I see how it goes reading some of the poems over the PA system? So I can remember vividly the very first day I was going to do this. I had the manuscript of the Flying Busman set up, where I keep it by the door control handle here with a poem of the day. And I had a busload of students, and I started down Comstock Avenue, which is where I do the reading on that stretch of Comstock because there's no bus stops there. It's a perfect place to do it. And I was so scared I couldn't do it. I was shaking, and I could feel that there was some kind of like a little tremor in my voice, and I thought, I can't do this. I can't do it. So I didn't do it. Day 2 rolls around. I got the same poem in the same spot. I'm in the same place on Comstock. I've got another busload of people, and I'm thinking to myself, well, you're either going to do it or you're going to have to hang it up and give up on this idea.
I was working a bus route on the west side a number of years ago, and I had this little old gentleman that would ride with me every day for a long time, and we became friendly. And then one day he disappeared, and I had no idea what happened to him. But I found out a few days later from someone else who knew him. He inspired this poem. It's called Missing. As she's about to step off the bus at the senior citizens apartment complex, I stop her and say, hey, maybe you can help me. There's this little old man with a New York accent that used to ride the bus every day. I haven't seen him in a couple of weeks. Oh, he died, she says. He used to share the gossip from his building about the widows who still mourned or bitched about their deceased husbands. Jesus, he'd say, they've been dead for 30 years. Get over it already. For the past year, it took him longer and longer to get on and off the bus with a grocery bag from his daily trip to the supermarket. Just before he stopped riding, he told me he had a doctor's appointment the next day. I don't know what's going to become of me, he said. Woo. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. So we restate the question. Where do people go?
So I did it. It went very well. I got a rousing round of applause, and I got everybody down to College Place, and they all got off the bus, and I didn't have anybody going back through South Campus. And I was so elated. I was so thrilled by what I had done and by the response I got. I felt like I was driving like 6 inches out of the seat, like I was on a cloud driving the bus back to South Campus. So I thought, well, why not continue with it?
Finish this sentence for me. Mickey the Flying Busman is
someone who likes to wear funny hats, who likes to have a funny mustache, and who likes to wear kinds of funny jewelry and stuff, because the whole purpose of being here is to having fun. And so Mickey the Flying Busman is someone who is going to tweak whatever aspect of himself or his situation he can to have as much fun for himself and for anyone else who happens to be around and interested.
awesome. Now, last question. What is your philosophy for life?
If I had one, it would probably be something like I mentioned to you earlier. Keep going. Keep going. Because life's going to keep going. It's not going to hold still for you. And if you want to stay up to speed with who you are and who you want to become, because that evolution of becoming never stops, you have to keep going. You have to keep taking the challenges. You have to keep moving in a direction that allows you to expand into the full boundlessness of who you are. So if I had a philosophy, I would say, keep going.
I like it. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for watching this edition of Syracuse Stories. Please stay tuned. We have more stories to share.